to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Cinderella. We saw this production at the Nottingham Playhouse on the 28th of December 2023. This Brothers Grimm fairy tale is brought to life by the writing of Adam Penford. We'll be booing Cinderella's surly sisters Rose and Violet, swooning at Prince Charming, marvelling at the fairy godmother, and enjoying an added touch of fabulous glamour and glitz from Nottingham's favourite panto dame John Elkington. So Stephen, what's it all about?
Cinderella and her stepsisters are invited to a ball at the palace, where the prince hopes to meet his future wife. The stepsisters are jealous of Cinderella's beauty, so tear her dress apart before she can attend the ball. A fairy godmother appears and transforms Cinderella's rags into a beautiful gown and glass slippers, and a pumpkin into a carriage. Cinderella can attend the ball, but must return home before the clock strikes midnight.
But first, our post-show opinion!
A good old pantomime time.
Bright, bold and fun for the family.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
Set the scene!
We have a striking set this time round.
It's
Don't
like
we-
a little fun fair.
Oh, it is. And we have pumpkins and cogs, yes, you heard that correctly, going all the way up one side of the stage, across the top, and then back down the other on these sort of side things that are backed by a bit of blue or light.
And right at
some
the
kind
back of the
lighting or
stage,
something.
and right at the back of the stage was a big top.
Huh? Big top.
A big top.
A big top. Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the picture where it's just got the name Cinderella on.
Okay.
So if I move that along, we have a big top. Oh, look, it's a big top full of circus performing and little shop things, or little. Well, they're not really shops, more like teepees and huts
And a
things.
Punch and Judy show.
Yes, and they've got these not flat the wings. No, the sets. What are they called?
Tabs.
Tabs, full tabs, half tabs, like the arch tabs.
The archway. Yeah, the
arch
archway.
tabs
Yeah,
with cogs and decorative stuff layered to give like a
to give some depth to the stage.
Traditional depth to the stage.
I mean, one thing I would like to
know,
say.
but it's when years ago you used to make a stage in, and you'd have like a cardboard box. You'd have the front,
Yes,
and then you'd have the tabs come in, with arched raised tabs.
Yeah.
So it's that effect, that traditional effect.
Yeah, and each one was different, so it led you right down through the stage rather than it being everything matching and everything. You know, all the cogs were in different positions, so it felt more like it was a timepiece. It was a whole Cinderella. You know, getting to midnight, everything started to feel it was all linked to that. You know.
Yes, I'm good. I'm glad you said that, actually, because that's a good way of connecting everything.
Yeah, and also, I mean, one thing I was a little bit disappointed
Just
was
one thing.
Just one thing,
Oh.
is the fact that there was a Punch and Judy stage on stage, as in the Punch and Judy stall, but they never actually used it, even though it was that level. So it was a little disappointing that they didn't have a Punch and Judy in it.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know what I
maybe
mean?
maybe they're not allowed to these days.
Well, maybe
You're
not.
allowed to beat anybody up.
But it just felt a little wasted when you've got a little stage that they could have had. They could have had one little moment where they've got the maybe Buttons and the Dame made as characters to put in that to you know, if you're going to put it on stage, use it.
They
I
could have foreshadowed what was going to come by having
just
a
a
bit
little
of
moment. That was.
funny
I think
sketch
if you
there,
put it on, use it for for.
I always
effect.
say that when I'm on a date.
Well, that's
put it on,
very
use it.
good advice.
No, that's silly. I just put it
You
on
just
a
have to be a
t-shirt and
bit
use
wiser. In the words
Stop
of Emma
quoting
Bunton.
me. Stop quoting
In
me.
the words of Emma Bunton.
Yeah.
Be a little bit wiser.
Yeah.
Put it on.
No, let's stop singing. No, well, we won't.
And also the Ferris wheel was working, so they had a working lit up Ferris wheel that's turned just to show that we're at a fun fair with a circus.
Because the great big circus tent at the back didn't
show enough.
It didn't show enough, did it?
No, because this is Panto Day and we've got to make sure that everything's glitz and glamour.
Yes, we've got to represent everything.
Oh, and the carousel went round as well, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
That's
correct. And that was about it for the very first scene.
Yeah, everybody was having a good ride, weren't they?
Behave, you. I don't know what seat you were sat on.
Well, I got a screaming child next to me, so, that's what seat I was sat next to.
I thought you were the screaming child. Right, so that's setting the scene, and then we went straight into the story, which was obviously it started at the circus, and then it went to the palace gardens and so on and so forth, and how hard done by Cinderella is, and blah blah blah. You know the story.
Yeah, and I think maybe something
something
you mentioned is why does it start in a fun fair in a circus? I've been thinking about this since we watched it, and I wonder if it was just to lift the production, because I've seen another production and I've seen the shots where basically they've put it in a fun fair or whatever at the start, where maybe originally it was just in a village fete, so they've just done it to add more depth to the start of the panto, to make it more colourful.
But he never went back there. He never did anything else either.
But then I suppose fairs and things tour, they disappear and they don't come back, do they? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It was just maybe that's why they did it.
Do all Cinderella start at the?
I don't think they used to, but I think they do now. I think there's probably a running theme where they're making it. They've added it in to make it more colourful at the start rather than it being. You know what I mean? It's more of a.
So is that the circus where Prince Charming meets Cinderella?
It's actually quite a basic start to the fairy tale, so that's probably why this scene's been put in, because the start is big news came to town. It was time for the prince to find a bride, and the king and queen were going to have a ball. So it's quite basic in its. So this scene's probably been put in more recently to have an introduction to the dame, to Buttons, to all the characters, rather than it just going straight into the storyline of Cinderella.
Yeah,
it's probably just to flesh it out.
We never see the king and queen, do we?
No, we don't. No, and I think that's maybe where.
Do we normally see the king and queen?
I think you see them more
on some pantos.
Yeah, I think we probably might have done way back when, but now I think they've almost got rid of the king and queen characters, just to focus on more of the Cinderella prince storyline. I suppose that may be why they've done it. But yeah, that explains why we've got this scene rather than as well as the rest of the story, because it's actually quite linear, really, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, this is where Cinderella meets for the first time.
And this is where Panto gets involved and just creates, let's just, add scenes that don't always have to be there,
Fair enough.
Fairy enough.
Fairy enough?
No, she wasn't in this.
Was she not? She was not.
No, that's wishy-washy. That's Aladdin.
Oh, God. What have I put in that tea? I don't know. It must be like sugar.
Must be. I needed some energy.
Right, so this was written by Adam Penford again, who wrote last year's Dick Whittington.
Yep.
And how did you feel about the writing for this one this time around?
I thought it was good. I mean, I suppose there's only so many times you can write a production about Cinderella or any other panto without it having links to every other story in a way. So, maybe...
Yeah, because they're all very similar. And the jokes will be quite similar.
Yeah.
I found... I enjoyed Cinderella, but not as much in terms of the comedy and jokes than I did with Dick Whittington, because I suppose this time around we're comparing this to last year's.
Yes, I was going to say, so the Nottingham Playhouse's production of Dick Whittington last year, I agree. I mean, I felt that hit the comedy elbow right on it hit the funny bone last time.
But some of the jokes in this one felt a little to me like a bit eye rolling, or a bit they missed out jokes that could have been added.
Yeah.
But then the jokes that we did get sometimes got a bit obvious.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it did feel a little flatter in response as well. You know, I think that because you can be slapstick, but it's also you've got to make sure that those jokes land, and if they don't, get another one in there. You know, and I mean, I suppose we need to say we didn't watch this in the first week. We watched this sort of midway through its run, so we'd seen it. We gave it enough time to get some
before
traction.
Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
No, it was after Christmas.
it was in between, wasn't it?
In between.
But it started on the 1st of December, so we gave it. It's had enough time to work on anything that maybe didn't land joke-wise. If they wanted to change anything, you know what I mean?
Actually, take that. We saw this on the matinee.
Yeah, and I think we've learned a lesson on when we go and see something, because maybe it was because it was the matinee that
They weren't all pissed off.
Yeah, and it wasn't as funny because it was.
Well, we're not saying you have to be drunk to enjoy the humour.
No.
But it adds some kind of audience participation, and also the ambience and the reacting of the audience.
Yeah, and I think you tend to get the age group of audience in there, which is more likely grandparents with children and certain and probably younger children that go to matinees, rather than your sort of mid-range children that will laugh at the slapstick. You've got very young children in there that may not have, you know, they just bring their own. They laugh at only certain things. They don't.
Selective humour.
Yeah. Have you been diagnosed with selective humour?
Yeah. Anything else you want to discuss about the writing of it? I think all characters had enough to say. It was all split up equally again, like last year. And I think this is a good thing about, I suppose, Adam's writing when it comes to pantomime.
Yeah.
He gives enough for each specific character to say and do.
Yeah, and everybody
in equal
hit the
measure.
cliches of Cinderella as a panto. It was all there, you know, there was all the moments for each of those characters, wasn't there? You know, you definitely knew who was who. And there was a lot of, you know, you knew which character was which throughout the production, and I think that was.
Was there a witch?
Which? Well, yeah, there was a fairy godmother.
Ah, is she a witch?
Which?
Now then, can we just say about the directing now?
Yeah.
This was directed again by Adam Penfold. Oh, I do apologise if I've said Penfold again. Keep doing this with Adam. I've never met him, but it's that name.
It's Danger Mouse coming down.
I think it's because I'm an 80s baby.
No.
That's what it is. I just want to say Penfold. If I had a name called Penfold, I probably would have to change it to Penfold.
Penfold was the best character anyway. I mean, it's not a bad thing, you know.
Well,
Penfold.
You wouldn't want to look like him either, because it was a mole or something.
Yeah, it was a mole. Yeah.
Are we a mole in the hole? It was voiced by David Jacobs, not Jacobs.
You're really good with your names today.
Oh,
David Jason.
David Jason. Yeah, it's because I said it started with David. That's why. Jason David. No, not Jason David. Jason
Craig David.
David Craig. What? Who was it?
David Jason.
David Jason. Yeah. No, that still started with David. Oh God, I've lost it. I think there's something in my tea.
You said it was my tea earlier.
Danger Mouse was narrated by David Jason, not Penfold. That was somebody else. Anyway, we're talking about Cinderella. Get back on the situation.
Yeah, come on, Stephen.
There was a particular scene, as they always are in pantos, where they try and do something and get into a lot of trouble and a lot of mess.
Yeah.
And this one was quite a highlight, was where they started to try and wallpaper, and obviously they were having the wallpaper hanging on the ground, stepping on it as they're trying to get up the steps,
on the ladder,
you know, and all that kind of capery, and then trying to plaster it and hold the paper down, and then it just rolling up. You know, it's that kind of thing, and I think if you see it once, it's funny, but then I'm kind of used to that now, so it wasn't.
Yeah.
I felt that was a dip for me in the matinee, where it just didn't pop, or it wasn't as funny as what it could have been. But what made it funny was the ad-libbing. Well, not really an ad-lib, but it was the fact that in pantos sometimes they add in a bit where things go wrong.
Yeah.
And this time it was where the Buttons character couldn't open the door to get in.
Yeah.
or get out. So when
Because the door handle fell off.
so went off stage to come back on another side, and those kind of they're planned, but they're meant to look unplanned.
Yeah.
So that whole segment lifted it a bit. I don't know how you felt about that whole particular scene.
Yeah, I think, personally, I've seen that scene done quite a lot with in pantos of from way back when, in the days of Brian Connolly doing it, and the Chuckle Brothers, and it did lack a little energy because the wallpaper had broke before they'd put it on the wall. It was, with those sort of scenes, they're set up to break down over a longer period, so there's more Laurel and Hardy about it, whereas this didn't feel like Laurel and Hardy were on stage. It was almost, I feel like it was thrown away. There just wasn't there wasn't as much focus paid to it.
It felt more of an effort to watch it.
It felt like, we've got to do this scene where we've got to put wallpaper on, we're going to make it funny, but they didn't actually use it to make it funny. I've seen it where it really is funny, and the wallpaper ends up getting stuck to the person on the wall because they're in the way. Buttons get stuck to the wall with the wallpaper. Yeah. And it's like, because they do it more than once, so you know it's coming, but they do something different the next time. And rather than this just felt like, we've painted the wallpaper, we've walked up it and broke it a bit, but we haven't actually elevated it to be silly. And because the whole point of this is it's got to be silly for the audience and the children to react, because they're not looking for the funny jokes. They're actually looking for the silliness and the fact that you get slapstick and the foam, you get foam on your face, or somebody's getting, because I've seen it where they're painting the wallpaper and they're painting somebody's face at the same time as they're going up and down, and it's silly. It's got to be. You've got to almost spend a bit more focus on it, and I think it was just thrown away.
Did a bit of that. I'm not quite sure if they did now or not.
Well, there was the bit where he put his leg out to hold the wallpaper out and stuff like that. But I just felt like it's more like we gave up on this version than I've seen before, where there's a lot more time spent to make it silly and funny. It's
I think the only word to sum up that was the fact that it was a bit too trying. You could see they tried, but it just felt a little bit boring.
Yeah, that's it.
A bit too much. So it was trying.
Yeah,
from an audience perspective of having to sit through it, because you know what you.
Part of me was a little bit like, it was almost like somebody wanted to look off stage and go, "Have the scene change done yet? Shall we stop? Have you done what you need to do behind stage?" Rather than it being a scene in its own sense, I felt like it was a holding place, whereas it should just be silly.
But we must remember, this is for the families and the kids.
Totally.
Who don't come to the theatre or haven't seen that many shows as well.
I was just thinking
they'll appreciate
it could have
that
been,
and see it and find it hilarious, whereas we've obviously seen it a bit too many times, maybe.
I think from a directing perspective, or would I say casting, I think personally there was a little bit of a disconnect where we've got a great young chorus and a group of young dancers involved. But I just felt like there was a middle bit missing of a few dancers that were adult to mix with the cast.
Teenage dancers.
Yeah, sort of teenage dancers to bridge that gap. Because there was times where the big dance numbers just could have done with a little bit extra support, with a few more ensemble cast members to be part of it. And I know that's, you've got to cast more people, but I just felt like it was top and bottom, there was no middle ground, where for me the whole point of panto is sometimes you break it down where you make these ensemble cast members laugh, or you'll mess, the dames or the characters mess around with the people on stage to try and make it a bit sillier. And I just felt like that was missing in this. Yeah. It's like for me, it's like the young cast then can aspire to these other dancers that are performing as well, and it doesn't shine away from those young performers, but it would have made it feel a bit fuller for certain scenes, I think.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what I feel about the whole dance thing, other than I quite enjoyed it, and I don't think I noticed the difference.
No.
But I do think I did notice the fact that there were separate segments for those dancers.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of agree, maybe they could have been incorporated a little bit more.
Yeah.
Have it a bit more seamlessly.
You know, I think it's like, for me, it's like when the Prince came on with Dandini, you'd have expected somebody else maybe holding the slipper on a cushion. And it's you know what I mean? It's that sort of like the entourage was missing. There were certain scenes where...
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It just felt...
Oh, there was also a bit where Cinderella was in the box.
Yeah.
As well, and they were taking the shoes off the dames and going right round and stuff.
And I just felt like that would have helped just feel the power of, say, a prince having an entourage. I think that was it. It was like, you know, yes, you'd have your sort of
But you had Prince and Dandini, and Dandini was playing the role of Prince.
Yeah.
They did a bit of a role swap, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. I
don't know on that one. I think maybe because the focus was on the dames, more so on that one. There was another scene which we probably could talk about in the tech, but I'll just discuss it here. On the ending of Act 1, they had the whole pumpkin carriage, and that was on another sort of a crane which we've seen before, where they get in and then it just lifted a little bit.
Yeah.
The unicorn, I suppose.
Yeah.
Moving its legs. But that felt a little lackluster.
It did.
Because it didn't really go anywhere. It just went up a little bit and then that was it.
And and not just that, you could actually see the mechanism that was actually operating it, rather than...
It didn't really come out, and it just like, oh, we're going to go there, and then she's up, she's off. But then it's like, she's not really moving anywhere because she's now static. And
also, it didn't feel like there was enough smoke to hide the mechanics of it, and you could almost see that happening. And for me, that was a little bit frustrating, but also it seemed like we've got to do it, but that was it, really. And, you know, and maybe...
They all seem to be having these crane things that just lift things up in the air just lately.
I feel like we're hiring things from companies just to do those scenes rather than being inventive with it, because you can buy those, you can hire those from hire companies. So I've seen the same carriage and horse in another production this year.
If we go to see Aladdin... Yeah, it's going to be the same thing on a carpet.
With a carpet, yeah, it is.
And Jack of the Beanstalk, are they going to be on some kind of like bean?
Well, the recent version of Jack and the Beanstalk actually did have a beanstalk grow up into the auditorium, but that was different. But that's, you know, I do feel like there's a lot of it. It's an effect that's becoming too predictable now. Yeah. It's not being as, you know. So that's just my view.
Yeah. Oh, there's another scene which was quite good, was when they were trying to squirt the audience with water.
Yeah.
And then Violet ended up getting...
To wake them up.
Yeah, then Violet went to get the hose pipe to get them all out and stuff like that. So
I mean, the other good scene as well was was it the bread in the oven? Or was that...
I don't know about that one, but there was a bit where they had a clock on the side, and Button said, if anybody goes to press that button... or whatever, shout out for buttons or something.
Yeah.
So that was another, like...
Cliche.
Well, it was a time thing to keep the audiences involved.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. It's not really a technical thing.
No.
It was the scene where we're underwater. We were journeying through the haunted forest.
Yes.
And it was all in UV, and that did feel... a little bit lackluster this time.
Yeah, but they always do that, don't they?
Yeah.
Unless they always do it... Because they did that in Dick Whittington as well.
They did, yeah. I just think this time it was a little bit... It was over before it started, and it was a bit like... I think the only thing I'd say is most of it was fine. It was just right at the end, they brought up a big spider... And to spoil the effect of the UV, they didn't turn the UV off before they brought the tab down to hide the spider.
Right.
So you saw the tab coming down covering the UV spider, whereas they should have just, if they'd have switched the UV off, they could have just brought it down and you would have seen it disappear, rather than it being like a wipe down, like hiding. There's like an Etch-a-Sketch blanking out the spider. It was a little bit just... I think it was more... This time it more felt like it was a gap filler than actually a journey.
It is actually intended as a gap filler journey, isn't it? Though?
I think the difference is with Dick Whittington, they went underwater and they were underwater and they were being chased by marine creatures.
Yeah.
This just felt a little bit less journey-wise. I mean, the other thing, I suppose, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it was the haunted forest bit with the log that got thrown on.
That was funny. But yeah, it's been done before. But
yeah,
no, I'm not. Oh, of course, yes. Yeah. Because they had the two dames and they came in like a motorbike and sidecar.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have anything else to add to that, other than it was just another one of those. It's behind you.
Yeah.
And then the person who's doing the hunting gets scared when they soon see the actual final dame there.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
they run off.
Yeah.
That's the whole gag with that one.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama. So let's talk about the actors now. So yes, I felt everyone gave had equal measure in terms of the writing that was distributed. Also, another note which was very similar to the Theatre Royal Dick Whittington was the fact that where in there the lady playing the Queen Rat had two particular roles. This lady here, who played the fairy godmother, also played her ladyship, which was Alice Redmond.
Yes.
She was great. And
she was. It
was one of those characters where I was thinking they had an extra person playing that extra role.
Yeah, and she really grabbed on both of her characters as well.
Yeah, it was really good. She stood out as well for me.
Yeah, definitely.
As usual, we had the Danny Hendricks, who was in again as Buttons.
Yep.
From the Derby Theatre alum, and John Elkington again played the Rose, and we also have a new local talent, Tom Hopcroft, who played Violet. And
so the two sisters were played by the ugly sisters were John and Tom. So yeah.
And Tom's from the local Christian Thomas Company, the dance company, as well. So it's nice to see them using local talent within the Nottingham Playhouse.
Yeah, and actually letting them shine as well, because I think that was the good thing about this. John Elkington's well known for being the dame all the time, but to bring another dame in because you're having two ugly sisters, you need them both to be at the same energy level, and I felt like these were really,
Yeah, and John had worked previously with another dame, as a double act, and since then has teamed up with obviously Tom for this one, and it worked really well. Mm-hmm. In fact, you could even say that Tom held his own on stage.
Totally.
His character Violet was just as much racy and funny as Rose was,
and also just as capable as ad-libbing as anybody else. There was no lag or anything like that. They were just as quick as each other.
It's not as if like he was waiting for John to take the lead either. You know how some
not at all.
You've been here you the longest.
I'll just sit back and let you
handle
pick
this
everything
one.
up. Yeah,
he very much like took ownership of that role.
Totally.
As well, which was just wonderful. And Joelle Hutchinson, she was amazing as Cinderella.
Yeah,
she was really good. She had a singing voice. She did. What did she sing? Oh, I don't know, but there was some singing bits involved as well. What's the singing bits? Or am I just
there was
confused?
There was singing bits.
Yes, yeah, she was. Excellent. To be fair, they all were. Even like Liam Marcellino as a prince, he was quite hot and good, and Georgia May Price, Dan Deeney. It was a really good cast.
It was. Really good cast. Yeah, they all worked well together.
Anybody off the other page?
No,
there were covers. No, but they were really well cast.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the tech is this?
So, Tech, we've already said about the UV lighting, and then the bit of
the Cinderella's carriage.
Yeah, the Cinderella carriage. But in terms of the whole stylistic approach with the lighting, I thought the backdrop and the side lighting of the actual stage was quite well done.
Yeah.
You know, with the clocks and the pumpkins
definitely.
up and around
Yeah.
the stage, like the frame.
Yeah, it felt really rich in staging because it didn't feel like it felt, because you can always have a scene draped at the back that just shows a certain area or this, that and the other, but to have this rich work on the archers, it made it feel more.
It elevated it.
It elevated it a lot, yeah, and it was almost
colourful,
3D
it was
because
fun.
there wasn't these cogs and things weren't just flat on the stage. There were some of them that were further forward than others, so you could tell there was distance, and you know.
But like when they did Dick Whittington as well, that was a great set as well.
Yeah, it was.
The whole set quality and stuff to these pantos is always top notch when it comes to this production company.
Yeah, and the LED work and the things that they did behind those cogs and things, the colours all changed really nicely. There was no real technical issues that I noticed. There was, and it felt like you were opening a pop-up book a bit, really. You felt more like you were watching something that was evolving rather than it just being a static stage that, it felt full of life, and their costumes matched it, so the colour, everything felt like a storybook almost. Yeah.
Anything else on like the particular lighting or technical aspect that they used?
I think
you would have noticed it.
Well, they used the projector for the
clock
hands going round on the stage and stuff like that. And I mean, really, there was a lot. There was a lot of light. I could tell that they were using a lot of lighting, but that just enhanced the colour work on stage, really. But technically it was done really well. I mean, sound was fine. I mean, the sound effects worked well, and all those bits, that everything was, the cliched sound effects for a panto all happened and all did what they needed to do. So yeah, it's I thought that was good.
Yeah. Anything else then before we move on?
Don't think so.
And now it's time for
Rewind Rewatch.
I think for me it would have to be anything between Rose and Violet when they're out on the stage. Not necessarily, I wouldn't want to see the wallpaper and scene again, but they had a couple of other scenes which escape my memory at the moment.
Yeah.
But they did gel together really well, and it would be nice to see a little bit of whatever that was.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I think with pantos it's very difficult to pick out moments that you'd want to see again. But yeah, like you say, for me, I'd agree with you on the ad-libbing and the work between John and Tom, really. Yeah,
because I can't remember if they did one of those song things. I can't remember if they did one of them things where they played song lyrics and then used that as part of a dialogue. I can't remember now.
No.
Because they're always quite funny to watch. But other than that, I don't know. Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
Right then, summary then, Richard, for Cinderella.
A good interpretation of Cinderella, and really good sets, and it was definitely a colourful way to put this production on.
Yep, I quite enjoyed it. First time I've actually seen Cinderella as a pantomime, and it was all right. I quite enjoyed it. Yeah.
You shall go to the ball.
Wow. Indeed, I should hope so. Scores and please, Richard, for Cinderella. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best ball cinders could have been seen at, and 1 being a panto that ought to have got up in cinders. What's it going to be? Oh, one hit wonder.
I'll give this a 7 out of 10.
And I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 as well. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
A pleasant applause.
And I'm going to give it a pleasant applause as well.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Cinderella. We hope you found it insightful.
If not entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes. If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage, Downstage.
This Brothers Grimm fairy tale is brought to life by the writing of Adam Penfold. It's brought to life by the writing of... It's
You
because
want to
I'm
say
thinking
Penfold, Danger Mouse?
That's all I can think of.
I do as well. It's Danger Mouse and Penfold.
This
He doesn't look at all like Penfold.
It doesn't, no.
A fairy godmother appears and transforms Cinderella's rags into a beautiful gown and glass slippers. A fairy godmother appears and transforms A fairy godmother appears and transforms Cinderella's A fairy godmother's Shut up
We're having a
now.
problem with fairies.
Ella.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Cinderella.
Ella.
We-
Sorry.
It's like there's an echo.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
4, 5, 6.
You're just showing off now. Is that your vocal ability?
Yes, to be honest, I can only warble.
What I found?
What? The chip shop?
It's in my pocket.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Put that away.
No chips in there.
No, there isn't, unfortunately.
So, Richard, let's set the scene for Cinderella.
Okay. It's actually quite a basic start to this fairy tale.
You want to say that again?
Yeah, sorry.